What was supposed to be a normal hospital visit turned into a full-blown family showdown. My cousin Natalie's jealousy finally boiled over, and in front of my mom and uncle she accused me of stealing everything she ever wanted. But her meltdown uncovered years of lies my family had been hiding. By the end, I wasn't sure if I'd ever be able to trust them again. I honestly thought the hospital would be the last place for family drama, but clearly I underestimated my cousin Natalie. It all started last month when my mom had to be admitted for a minor surgery. Nothing super dangerous, but enough to make everyone anxious. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee, and I sat there with my mom's brother, my uncle Dan, 54, and my cousin Natalie, 25. Natalie has always been competitive with me. Growing up, she turned everything into a contest: grades, clothes, even who our grandma hugged first at Christmas. I used to brush it off as sibling-like rivalry, but now that we're adults, it's gotten weirdly intense. I'd just gotten back from grabbing some vending machine snacks when Natalie muttered loud enough for me to hear. "Natalie, of course you're the one Mom asked to come. She never asks me." I blinked at her. "What are you talking about? Aunt Karen called me because I live closest to the hospital." Natalie crossed her arms, glaring. "Right, because you're always the responsible one. I don't buy it." Uncle Dan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Natalie, this isn't the time. Your aunt's in surgery." But Natalie wasn't letting it go. She started ranting about how I get all the credit in the family, how I was the favourite, and how she was always treated like the backup option. I swear half the waiting room was staring. At first, I thought it was just her usual jealousy flaring up, but then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Natalie, you don't even deserve the title of being the oldest cousin that was supposed to be me." I laughed nervously thinking she was joking, but she looked deadly serious. "What do you mean supposed to be you?" I asked. That's when Uncle Dan's face turned white. He stood up, muttering, "Not now." Natalie smirked like she'd just dropped a bomb. "Oh, so you never told her. Figures." The room went dead silent except for the beeping monitors from down the hall. My heart started racing. "Told me what?" I demanded, looking between the two of them. Natalie leaned forward, her voice dripping with venom. "Natalie, you're not who you think you are. Mom and Uncle Dan lied about a lot more than you know." I felt my stomach twist. Uncle Dan rubbed his forehead like he was about to pass out. He muttered, "Natalie, stop. This isn't your story to tell." But the damage was done. I couldn't focus on anything else, not the surgery updates, not the bland hospital walls, just the weight of that one sentence. What exactly had they been hiding from me all these years? And why did Natalie look so satisfied, like she had finally won something? The silence in that hospital waiting room felt like it could crush me. My Uncle Dan kept pacing, muttering under his breath, while Natalie sat there with this smug little smile like she'd finally gotten her revenge. I snapped. "No, someone explain right now what the hell is going on." Uncle Dan froze, and for a second I thought he'd actually say something. But instead, he shook his head and muttered, "It's not my place. Ask your mom." That only made me angrier. "She's in surgery. You can't just drop something like this and then clam up." Natalie leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "See, this is exactly what I mean. Everyone protects you. I had to grow up hearing the whispers while you got to live in some perfect bubble. Maybe it's time you face reality." Her tone was so nasty. I swear the nurse at the desk actually raised her eyebrows. I leaned forward. "What whispers?" She tilted her head, almost like she was enjoying watching me unravel. "You ever wonder why your birth certificate doesn't have a father listed, or why you and I look more alike than regular cousins should?" My jaw dropped. "What are you talking about?" Uncle Dan groaned. "Natalie, stop." But she didn't stop. She doubled down. "Natalie, you're not just my cousin. You're..." Uncle Dan practically shouted over her, "That's enough." His voice echoed so loud in the sterile room that even the security guard by the elevators turned his head. I stared at him, my pulse hammering in my ears. "Tell me, right now." His hands were shaking, and he finally sat down, burying his face in them. He mumbled, "Your mom should have told you years ago, but she didn't, and I promised I wouldn't." Natalie rolled her eyes. "She's not a kid anymore, Uncle Dan. She deserves to know. Besides, why should I be the only one suffering from the truth while she gets the princess treatment?" At this point, I was trembling. "What truth?" Natalie locked eyes with me. "That Uncle Dan isn't just your uncle." I swear my heart stopped. The words hung there like poison in the air. I looked at him, waiting for him to deny it, to call her a liar, to laugh it off. But he just sat there, pale as a ghost, not saying a damn thing. I whispered, "Is that true?" His silence was the answer. Natalie let out this bitter little laugh. "Welcome to the Family Secrets Club. You've been living your whole life thinking you were just Aunt Karen's daughter, when really, you're my half-sister." The room spun. My ears were ringing. Half-sister? My uncle, my father? I stood up so fast the chair screeched against the tile. "You're lying. You're both insane." But deep down, some part of me knew she wasn't lying. And the worst part? She looked happy watching me fall apart. I don't even remember sitting back down, but suddenly I was in that stiff plastic chair again, shaking so hard I had to grip the armrests. The waiting room was around me, phones ringing, doctors walking by, but all I could hear was Natalie's voice echoing, "Half-sister." I stared at Uncle Dan. "Say something, please." He finally lifted his head, and his eyes were bloodshot. "It wasn't supposed to come out like this." Natalie snorted. "Oh, please. You've had 25 years to tell her. Don't act like this is some tragic accident." I snapped my head toward her. "Shut up for once. This isn't your bomb to drop." She smirked. It kind of is. I've lived my whole life in your shadow while you got the golden child treatment. Meanwhile, I'm the one who had to keep my mouth shut about everything. Do you even know what that's like? I didn't answer, because my brain was too busy spiraling. Uncle Dan, my dad? That would mean everything about my childhood. Every family story, every memory was built on a lie. I croaked out, why the hell would Mum hide this from me? Uncle Dan rubbed his face. She thought it was best. We were young. Mistakes were made. She didn't want you growing up with shame. I laughed bitterly. Shame? So instead, you let me grow up with a fake version of my life? Natalie leaned forward. Now you see why I've always hated you. You got to be the secret love child, the miracle baby, while I was the afterthought. Everyone bent over backwards for you, while I had to deal with the whispers. I froze. What whispers? Her jaw tightened. That dad, well, your dad too, apparently chose your mom over mine, that he always cared more about Karen than Lisa. Do you know what it's like hearing that about your own parents? The pieces started falling together in the ugliest way possible. And Lisa, Natalie's mom, had been carrying a grudge against my mom for decades. And Natalie had inherited it, spoon-fed resentment her whole life. I looked at Uncle Dan, horrified. With your brother's wife? He winced like I'd slapped him. It was complicated. I stood up again, my voice shaking but loud. No, it was disgusting, and now you've let it rot through our entire family. Natalie crossed her arms. Finally, some honesty. I wanted to scream at her, but I couldn't, because part of me understood. She'd been drowning in a secret she didn't ask for. But instead of compassion, she turned it into bitterness aimed at me. Before I could respond, a nurse came over with an update about my mom. She's stable. The surgery went well. Relief hit me for a split second, but it was crushed by the chaos swirling in my head. Because now I wasn't just a daughter waiting for her mom. I was a girl who'd just found out her uncle was actually her father. And nothing about my family would ever be the same again. By the time my mom finally woke up, the waiting room had quieted down a little. Her groggy eyes scanned the room, landing on me first. Hey, honey, she whispered, her voice hoarse but warm. Relief washed over me, but I had to swallow hard to keep from breaking down completely. Then her gaze flicked to Natalie. My mom's expression hardened. Natalie didn't flinch. She smirked slightly, like she had been waiting for this exact moment. Hey, Aunt Karen, she said sweetly, though her voice carried that familiar edge of jealousy. My mom frowned. Why are you here? What's going on? I froze. Part of me wanted to shield her from the chaos that had already unfolded, but Natalie wasn't giving me a choice. Mom, I started cautiously. Natalie just dropped a bomb about everything. My mom's eyes widened. Everything? What do you mean? Natalie leaned forward, her voice sharp. You didn't tell her the truth about Uncle Dan, did you? About who she really is? The colour drained from my mom's face, and she turned to Uncle Dan, my uncle. His shoulders slumped. Karen, he began, but my mom shook her head. No, not here, not like this, she whispered, her voice trembling. But Natalie wasn't backing down. She has a right to know. Natalie insisted. I've spent my whole life being the scapegoat, the one who hears all the whispers and gets nothing, while she lives in some perfect lie. You need to stop hiding it. I could see tears welling up in my mom's eyes. Natalie, I didn't know how to tell her, she said, her voice shaking. We thought we were protecting her, but I see now it only made things worse. I sat there stunned. My mom had known, and she had kept it from me for all these years. Betrayal, anger, confusion, they all hit me at once. Natalie wasn't finished. She deserves to know the truth. Mom, she's my half-sister, Dan's daughter. You all lied for years. I flinched at the words a half-sister. That sting of reality cut deeper than anything else. My mom finally sighed, looking exhausted and defeated. You were right, you deserve the truth. I thought it was safer to wait until you were older, but keeping secrets, it was selfish. I'm sorry. Uncle Dan finally spoke, voice quiet. I'm sorry too, I never meant for it to come out like this. I felt my anger boiling again, but there was also a strange, heavy sense of relief. Finally, someone was admitting it. The years of lies, the jealousy, the whispers, they were finally out in the open. Natalie gave me a small, almost triumphant smirk. Welcome to reality, sister. I stared at her, speechless. My life had just been flipped upside down. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, it was all different now. And somehow, in that sterile hospital room filled with antiseptic and fluorescent lights, I realized that the real healing had only just begun. The next few hours felt like a surreal nightmare. My mom was resting, still weak from surgery, but the emotional tension in the hospital room was palpable. Natalie wasn't leaving anytime soon. She seemed energized, like she had finally tipped the scales in her favor. I was pacing, trying to process everything. My head was spinning. My dad was actually my uncle. Natalie was my half-sister, and my mom had knowingly kept it from me for all these years. The betrayal, the jealousy, the years of lies, it was suffocating. Uncle Dan broke the silence first, his voice low and strained. Look, I know this doesn't fix anything, but you need to understand why we did it. Back then, it seemed easier. We thought we were protecting everyone. I shook my head, almost laughing in disbelief. Protecting me? By lying about my whole identity? Natalie jumped in, eyes flashing. And meanwhile, you got to have the perfect little life. I had to live in the shadows, pretending everything was fine, swallowing every insult and whispered comment about how lucky you were. Did you even think about me once? I wanted to yell back, but part of me was oddly exhausted. The sheer intensity of her emotions was exhausting, and yet I couldn't deny that some of what she said was true. I'd been blissfully unaware, and maybe I had benefited from their lies without realizing it. My mom stared, and we called out, Natalie, please. But Natalie didn't relent. No, she needs to hear everything. Mom, you've been hiding this for decades. I felt my stomach drop. Mom, tell me, I whispered, my voice trembling. Everything. I need the truth from you, not Natalie. My mom closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Okay, all right. She started slowly, her words halting but deliberate. When you were born, Dan and we made mistakes. I was young. We thought keeping your father's identity secret would protect you. We never imagined it would hurt you this much. Natalie, your father, your uncle, was involved. Tears pricked my eyes. I couldn't breathe properly. All my childhood memories, all the stories I'd been told, they were built on lies. Natalie's smirk softened slightly. Finally, took you long enough? Uncle then tried to interject. Natalie. But she cut him off. No, let her hear it all. Years of lies, years of jealousy. She deserves it. I sank back into my chair, my chest heaving. For a moment, I just stared at them all, the parents I thought I knew, the cousin who was really my half-sister. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Then, for the first time since this all started, I realized something. The confrontation, the shouting, the jealousy, it was finally bringing the truth into the open. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step toward healing. But the tension wasn't gone. Natalie still glared at me, my mom still looked guilty, and Uncle Dan looked like he had aged 10 years in the last hour. And I knew one thing for sure, the fallout from this was only going to get worse before it got better. By the late afternoon, the hospital room had turned into a battleground of emotions. My mom dozed in her bed, exhausted but still intermittently listening, while Natalie and I sat across from each other like adversaries circling in a cage. Uncle Dan hovered nearby, guilt radiating off him in waves. Natalie broke the silence first, her voice sharp and unrelenting. You know what really gets me? That all these years I had to watch you get everything handed to you, praise, attention, love, while I was ignored, treated like the problem child. I flinched. You think I asked for that? I didn't even know any of this. Her eyes narrowed. Doesn't matter, you lived it, enjoyed it, and never questioned why. I felt my own temper rising, but before I could answer, my mom stared and murmured weakly, enough please. Uncle Dan sighed and ran a hand over his face. Natalie, you've been holding this in for decades. Maybe it's time to calm down before you say something you regret. But Natalie wasn't calming down. Regret? Do you think I regret growing up in your lies? That I didn't get the family I deserved? No, I've been angry, and maybe I still am, but you, she gestured at me, you get to have the perfect life while the rest of us suffer. I clenched my fist. Perfect life? You think I was happy living this lie? She laughed bitterly. Oh, don't act like you were innocent. You had every advantage. You got to be the golden child, the one everyone fawned over, while I got the blame for things I didn't even do. Uncle Dan's voice shook. Natalie, stop, you're scaring her. But Natalie only leaned in closer, her eyes gleaming. You know what? Maybe it's time you understood what it's like to have your whole world turned upside down. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I do understand now, because my whole world just fell apart in the last few hours. Do you think I wanted any of this? She tilted her head, smirk fading slightly. Maybe not, but you benefited from it whether you knew it or not, and it's time someone finally said it out loud. The room grew tense. Even the nurses outside the sliding door seemed to sense the storm brewing inside. I looked at my mom, who looked utterly defeated, her eyes filled with guilt. I didn't know what to do, my mom whispered. We were scared. We wanted to protect you, both of you, in the only way we knew. Natalie's eyes softened just a fraction. I know, Mom, but keeping secrets doesn't protect anyone. It just breeds more jealousy, more resentment, and look where it got us. I exhaled slowly, letting the anger out just a little. For the first time, I realized Natalie wasn't just my enemy. She was hurt, angry, and carrying a lifetime of resentment. And in a twisted way, I understood her. But understanding didn't erase the pain. Not the betrayal, not the jealousy, not the years of lies that had shaped our family into this fragile, chaotic mess. I glanced at Natalie, then Uncle Dan, then my mom. So what now? I whispered almost to myself. Natalie shrugged. Now we deal with it, one messy, complicated step at a time. And somehow, even amidst the tension and heartbreak, I realized that maybe, just maybe, admitting the truth was the first step towards some kind of fragile, tentative healing. By the evening, the hospital room felt quieter, though the tension lingered like a heavy fog. My mom was resting comfortably now, and even Uncle Dan had slumped into a chair, exhausted from the emotional rollercoaster. Natalie and I sat on opposite sides of the room, the air thick with unspoken words. I finally broke the silence. So we know the truth. Half-sister, uncle is dad. Years of lies. Where do we go from here? Natalie gave me a small, sardonic smile. Honestly, I don't know, but we can't go back. We can't pretend like nothing happened. That's the first rule. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not like we can undo the past, but maybe we can start over, or at least try. Her eyes softened. Starting over doesn't mean forgetting, but it's better than holding grudges forever. Uncle Dan, looking like he aged a decade in the last few hours, spoke up. I know I've made mistakes, big ones. I never should have let this spiral like it did. I want to fix things, if that's even possible. I looked at him, anger still simmering, but tempered by relief that at least some honesty was in the room. It's going to take time, and it's not going to be easy, but yeah, we can try. My mom stirred slightly, opening her eyes. Natalie, I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting both of you, but I see now that I caused more pain. I hope one day you can forgive me. Natalie hesitated, then gave a small nod. This'll take time, Aunt Karen, but I get it. I think we all just needed this truth. For the first time in hours, I felt a strange sense of calm. The jealousy, the betrayal, the years of lies, they weren't gone, but the storm had passed enough for us to start addressing it. I glanced at Natalie. So sisters, huh? She smirked faintly. Sisters doesn't sound so bad when you say it like that. I laughed softly, a mixture of relief and disbelief. Sisters who almost lost it all in a hospital waiting room. She rolled her eyes but chuckled. Yeah, thanks for the drama. Sister. We sat in that room for a while, not speaking much, just letting the weight of the day settle. The fluorescent lights flickered slightly, and the antiseptic smell lingered, but for the first time, it felt like we were facing the truth together. The hospital staff had started cleaning around us, but I didn't care. In that moment, surrounded by my mother, my father, uncle, and my half-sister, I realized something crucial. The truth hurts, but it also sets you free. And maybe that was the first real step toward healing our fractured family. We didn't solve everything that day. There would be arguments, awkward dinners, and plenty of reminders of the lies we'd uncovered. But we had the truth now, and for the first time in my life, I felt like we might actually survive it. Even if it started in the most dramatic, chaotic way possible.